Executive Order 9066 mandated that all persons of Japanese ancestry be evacuated from the West Coast and/or be confined in facilities referred to as evacuation centers, internment centers, relocation centers, or concentration camps, depending on one's point of view. In California, in the Inyo Valley, Manzanar was such a place, constructed on acreage once occupied by its namesake town. The government recruited volunteers from the Japanese American community to help build Manzanar. Ironically, it would become their future homes. The buildings, labeled by the Army as Theater of Operations housing suitable for combat-trained soldiers, were meant to be temporary structures, one step above a tent city. Temporary for some evacuees translated into a 3.5-year confinement. It took 6 weeks to complete structures. The camp was opened for its first families in March of 1942. There were 36 residential blocks and a factory area. There was a hospital complex, offices and housing for Caucasian government personnel, and eventually a high school auditorium gymnasium was added. A perimeter barbed wire fence and 8 guard towers were the finishing touches, whether they were meant to protect or imprison was answered by the posted sign. Once established, Manzanar had a branch of the Los Angeles Post Office. Mr. Ralph Merritt, seated front center. Elected Mayor Mr. Anzai, seated on the left, and block managers from each residential block met at regular town hall meetings to formulate camp policy. Most adult residents joined the Manzanar Cooperative, which included such enterprises as the Manzanar Free Press. Its staff initially published a bi-weekly mimeographed edition that graduated into a full typeset edition. A general merchandise and dry goods store, a canteen, a barber shop, a beauty shop, and a shoe repair shop served the community. Many first and second generation Japanese whose livelihood depended on farming resumed that occupation at Manzanar. Crops such as sweet corn, cucumber, melons, radishes, tomatoes, and watermelons were grown. By the summer of 1943, with cattle, swine, poultry, and other farm animals, Manzanar became, for the most part, self-sufficient in feeding itself. The abundant production of farm animals and produce enabled them to share their excesses with other camps and even sell to the open market. Produce was displayed in a storefront at Independence. Guayuli, a latex-producing shrub, was grown by and for the Manzanar Guayuli Project. Dr. Robert Emerson, a professor of plant physiology at the California Institute of Technology, and Dr. Morganlander Shimpei Nishimura, a nuclear physicist from UC Berkeley, headed the group. Japan's control of the rubber supply from Southeast Asia prompted the need for an alternate source of rubber for the war effort. This group developed methods for propagating and growing the plant from cuttings. They hybridized the plant with higher rubber content and designed machinery that extracted more latex per plant. This extraordinary group was never recognized for its achievements. Industries thrived at Manzanar. With a warehouse of cloth, a garment factory provided items such as camp hospital clothing and men's, women's, and children's apparel sold in the co-op. Many factory employees had previous experiences as seamstresses, pattern makers, material cutters, and pressers. The taller buildings shown under construction were required to house a camouflage weaving facility. Nets were woven for the military to help with the war effort. A division of industry manufactured soy sauce, miso, Japanese pickles, and tofu for the Japanese palate. There were cabinet makers, carpenters, electricians, and a host of other tradesmen for the maintenance and servicing of the center. Manzanar was protected by its own fire department. Due to a ban on firearms possession, Manzanar had a weaponless police department and a mounted police. For religious worship, a Catholic church, a Buddhist church, and a church with a Protestant faith were provided. Shown as numbered buildings, the living units had no cooking or toilet facilities. A typical residential block had a central core of communal facilities. At mealtime, the residents formed a line at the mess hall to be served cafeteria style and sit at picnic-like wooden benches and tables. The Manzanar Hospital was staffed with Japanese and Caucasian doctors and nurses. Most employed at the hospital came from the ranks of the evacuees. Manzanar had its own cemetery where some chose to have their deceased interred. One of the few vestiges left of a vibrant community is this monument. Originally named Pleasure Park, it was later renamed Merritt Park in honor of Ralph Merritt, the popular camp director. The park was designed, constructed, and landscaped by the residents. The grammar school was scattered in different areas, using the recreation hall of some blocks as classrooms. The combined junior high and high school campus was a residential block, Block 7. Along with academic classes, it was a typical American institution, offering extracurricular activities such as their choir, the Spanish Club, the Latin Club, the French Club, the Woodshop Club, GAA, Junior High Y, Booster Club, Girls Baseball, Junior High Football, and Senior High Basketball. Leisure activities included picnics at Bears Creek that flowed through the southwest corner of the camp, and, when films were available and weather permitted, an outdoor walk-in movie. Some chose the quiet of the library, reading books donated by friends. The youth had their Boy Scout troop. The community provided classes in art, fashion design, and dressmaking. Those skilled with their hands carved and painted exquisite trinkets. The older folks had their victory gardens, or challenged each other in the Japanese board game of Go. A club, the Wingnuts, provided an outlet for model airplane hobbyists. Golfers enjoyed a round of 9-hole golf on a course built by resident golf enthusiasts. Notice the sand greens. Where else but in a Japanese community could you find bonsai and flower arranging? There was an Issei group who sang as accompaniment for kabuki dancers. Many practiced judo at the local dojo, designed and constructed by the internees. Social dancing was a popular pastime. Residents were entertained at an outdoor stage with performance by such groups as the Jive Bombers, a swing band, the Sierra Stars, a country western band, or the Manzanar Orchestra. Many were active members or spectators in organized sports like baseball, girls basketball, boys basketball, or volleyball, while others formed clubs because of common interests or just to establish an identity, a seniors baseball team. They called themselves the Block 18 Old Man's Team, the Buck Babes, the Senior Manzanites, the Manzanites Club, Block 19 Baseball Team, San Fernando Aces, Calico Cats, the Roughnecks, Block 19 Lifters, Modernaires, the Red Sox, the Tro Babes, the Forget-Me-Nots, the Skippers, the San Pedro Yogures, and finally, a group who are now older with failing memories, none of whom remember why this picture was taken. The primary intent of this hastily assembled collection of photographs was for entertainment at the 2007 Manzanar High School Reunion. It portrays people coping with life behind barbed wire fences and does not reflect the harsher and sometimes bitter experiences suffered by incarceration. Although reunions such as this provide for a gathering of friends made through a common experience, Manzanar and 10 other places of internment should not be an event imposed on any other group of human beings. Thank you and good night.